Right. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fazlifts episode 6. Today, I'm going to be talking about online coaching. So, what is it? I've had this question quite a few times. What is it? What do we do? What are the advantages? And I think most people want to know what it is and whether it's a better choice for them, whether it's more advantageous for them. So, I'm going to talk through what I do in regards to training, diet, lifestyle coaching, and then I'm going to talk a bit about some of the pros, some of the cons, and also perhaps compare it to your typical, say, spin class or circuit class, and why your online training is generally a lot better, in my experience. So we will delve straight into, let's do a quick preamble first, just about my experiences with myself, with my clients regarding long-term weight loss. Now, I just recently, a few days ago, got a message from an ex-client who told me that she's finally, after a time with me, she's finally managed to keep the fat off. And it was such a nice message to get. So Trish, if you're listening, thanks for that. It really made my day. But she said that, for the first time she's actually managed to keep the weight off. Now, I know in the past she's traditionally done a lot of cardio. She's done classes or PT sessions where the focus has really been on the burn and expending calories rather than a long-term view to getting stronger and more muscular. Now, I think there's a big difference there, not just speaking about Trish, but with all my clients. I've had none of them regain massive amounts of weight after a diet. Now, I think there's a large part of that in terms of how I coach them, and I build in certain safeguards in that area, but there's also a lot of it in terms of my overall approach. I really focus on diet and training hard. Those are the two big tenets of my coaching, and I think that's typically going to get better results than focusing on diet and cardio. I'm not a big fan of cardio for weight loss. I think it's great for getting you healthy. I think that's fine, but it's not brilliant for getting you leaner, and certainly not great for getting you leaner long term. I actually had this conversation with a current client of mine as well, Bex, and she said she lost a lot of weight a few years ago just by cutting her portions, doing a hell of a lot of cardio, and that's great. And then I asked her, what happened afterwards, and typical sort of fashion, she'd put it back on. So I really want to emphasize this idea that diet and cardio tends to lead to fairly superficial fat losses. And there's a reason for that. If you're doing a lot of cardio and if you're burning a lot of calories and then not eating very much, your body isn't going to have the stimulus necessary to hold on to your muscle mass. And muscle mass is a pretty good determinant of your metabolic rate. So what happens when you diet and your entire body mass goes down is because your entire body mass goes down, you tend to your metabolism tends to be lower. Because your total body mass has gone down, but then that's exacerbated by your muscle mass going down as well, because that causes other issues. Now, what I would rather do is I would rather have people focusing most, and this is how I structure things, and the success I've had with my clients, because they've mostly been focused around structured weightlifting. So weightlifting and bodybuilding with a long-term view, a long-term plan, as well as caloric restriction, so as a diet. And that seems to offer much more lasting fat loss, and that's kind of the starting point of this conversation. And if you're thinking about online coaching, I want you to just consider the fact that a structured, progressive weightlifting routine, where there's a plan, a long-term plan, a long-term progression, is going to do a hell of a lot more for you long-term than just starving yourself and doing cardio classes. And that's kind of the basis of the talk today. So if we delve firstly into training, I'll talk a bit about what I do. Now, with training, I'll usually set up a client with a routine. It could be anywhere between 3 to 6 days, depending on what they want to accomplish. Now, within that, what we do is we really have a focus on lifting hard and heavy. So in a bodybuilder style rep range, building muscle or preserving muscle if they're in a deficit, and really working hard on the output in the gym. So we need to be doing fairly high volumes, moderate to high volumes, working extremely hard during the sets, and actually having a plan for progression. So not this sort of, so an idea where we have perhaps a 6-week block where we're starting off with certain weights and certain volume, and then progressing over time to make sure we're getting better and better and better, and we're posing more demands on the body, which is going to then result in more adaptations. And that's a really solid way of getting yourself consistently and convincingly more muscular and stronger. And it's satisfying as well. It's very gratifying to see those instant results where week by week you can see the poundages on the bar go up, the amount of work you can do go up, and it's a very reliable and satisfactory sort of indicator that things are going well. So it gives you that sort of immediate feedback. And as we know with fat loss, it's not always that quick. So it's nice to be able to have a focus on performance, a focus on numbers. And I think for a lot of women in particular, it's quite gratifying to see themselves getting stronger over time. It is for men as well, but I think for everyone likes to at least feel they're getting to a good level of strength. So my focus is very much on hard training and getting progressively stronger over time and building muscle. I think the more we can build our bodies up, the better we're going to have. I know that for certain because it's worked convincingly in my own training and that of my clients. So what I would do with online training is I would give somebody a routine. I would create a personalized routine for them for however many days they like, based on limitations they have, and then the rest it would be filled in with my own thoughts on training, my own style of training, my own system of training. And I have a fairly reliable, consistent system now, which has proven to be good for the majority of people, and I have some variations that I use for others as well, to guarantee that we're going to see some progress in the gym. Now, once we have a system like that, the body will just do what it naturally does, and it will adapt to that, it will respond to that, and get more muscular and stronger over time. And that has a great long-lasting effect on your fat loss, effort. So the weightlifting is vitally important. I think if you're at the sort of, what I've seen at least, is if you're at a fairly high level of body fat and you're still in a deficit, you're still going to be gaining some muscle as you start a proper structured lifting routine for the first time. And it's a joy to see when you see people who have started an actual structured weightlifting routine for the first time. They may be well into their 30s, 40s, or even 50s at the time, but the results that you see from the first time of actually starting a good solid weightlifting routine with a focus on the long term, so 6-week blocks, 12-week blocks, a focus on the future, so things actually run along from week to week and month to month. It's really gratifying to see the kind of results that they can get. Now, if we compare that to something like, let's compare it to two different types of PT that you might have. Let's say a one-to-one PT session you have with your PT, say once a week. So once a week you go in. Now, because it's only once a week, and most people are limited financially by how often they can see their coach, their PT, let's say maximum 2 times a week, but generally for most people it's once. You're limited to what you can do in 1 hour with a PT. So within that hour, let's say they're charging you, the standard sort of going rate. Within the hour, they're going to want to make sure that you get your best value for money for that hour. Now, for that hour, that's going to involve making you work hard in the gym, making you feel like you've had a good workout, making you feel you've had a good burn, you've built up a bit of a sweat, and you can kind of walk away thinking, okay, I had a pretty good workout. Now, within that hour, you're time limited by your scope to do other things, so you can't really sit them down for 20 minutes and talk them through their entire rest of the week. You can't talk to them about the rest of their training session during the week. Presumably they want to be training more than once a week, so they'll be going in other days on their own without you as your PT and not really having a plan of what to do. So that causes a problem. So they're seeing a PT once a week, perhaps twice. Other days of the week they're uncertain about the plan because they haven't really been given one. And if they had a plan themselves, they would have done that themselves rather than be with a PT. So they don't really have a plan from week to week. And in my experience, most PTs, they don't really have a vision for their clients month to month. It's just a case of beasting them in the gym and making them build up a sweat for their first PT session, and very little else afterwards. So we get into a situation where we can question the progression week by week. How are we progressing week by week? And if we're not progressing week by week and we're just doing a load of random shit from session to session, how do we really know we're getting anywhere? Yeah, we might be working up a sweat, we might be getting tired, we might be getting sore, but if there's no actual plan for long-term progression, it's debatable how useful that is, right? In my opinion, it's pretty pointless. And that's typically what I see or I have heard of from clients who have come to me and described their experiences with PT sessions one-to-one in commercial gyms and stuff like that. It's pretty bad. So that's sort of a 1-0 victory for online coaching. You can provide your client with not only a weekly range of exercises, but a monthly, a 6-weekly, a 3-monthly plan for the entire year. You can work around holidays, you can work around commitments, you can work around deadlines. You can create an entire plan because you're not limited by the time you have in that 1 hour. You'll typically have a check-in session, usually once a week, and within that session, within those sort of emails and videos that you sent over to the client, you have the time and the space to be able to write a composed plan for their long-term progress. So it's much more focused on holistically the entire plan rather than just getting them tired for 1 hour per week. And already that should be sounding a lot better. So if we move over to diet's kind of similar. In fact, it's probably a worse situation. You have an hour with your PT, and they're not really going to have a chance to talk much about diet, save from the fact that, try and eat healthy. And again, we can talk all we like about what is eating healthy, but at the end of the day, the priorities are eating less food. So tracking calories, tracking macro. If you've got a PT who's seeing you for an hour a week, how are they going to know whether you're tracking those calories, whether you're tracking those macros? How are they going to keep you accountable? Apart from just how did it go this week, Susan? Yeah, it went all right. Apart from that kind of style of conversation, how are you actually going to know? It's not going to happen. Whereas with online coaching, what I would do is I'd have some form of tracking week to week, so I know what they're doing in terms of diet. I'll give them some suggestions. Depending on the client, I have different ways. I don't want to say there's one single way of doing things. There isn't. The most common way is macro counting, but there's an infinite number of ways depending on what the client is capable of doing, what level of detail the client wants to do. Could even be as simple as just something like weigh-ins every day and then some general advice on what to eat. But the bottom line is, with an online coach, you have accountability across the entire week. So and it's there in numbers written down, so you can show your coach at the end of the week what you've done. They can comment on that, and you're going to be accountable. And as we know, diet's a large part of it. Eating less is a large part of it. So you might be, again, you have that situation where you might have to see your PT for 1 hour or 2 hour a week. They beast you in the gym. They give you a high five. They give you a quick, "How's diet going?" "Yeah, it's going okay." And that's it. But are you starting to see the picture now of why that's so limiting? Because training and diet is something that needs to be done across the entire week, diet in particular. And if we don't actually have a level of accountability there, if we don't have your coach checking what you're doing there, how do you know you're going to be making progress? You just don't. Now, if you're at the point and you're listening to this saying, well, I've got my shit in check, I know I know what I'm training week by week, I know what I'm dieting with, great, fantastic, you don't need a PT, okay? But this is mainly for the people who are looking at online coaching, deciding whether they want to do it or not. And they may typically be at the point where all they're really doing now is focusing on some spin classes they enjoy going to with a friend of theirs, and they do a little bit of casual lifting on the side. This is more designed for them. Think about that accountability. Think about that education that you're missing out on without having this system where you're actually accountable for the entire week, and you have the time and space to be educated and to be taught about what effective training and effective diet is. Now, the final one I want to talk about, I've sort of labelled more holistically like lifestyle coaching. So a lot of that is education on how to eat, how to train, and how to look after yourself, sleep and all that kind of stuff. Now, it might seem like a little bit of an odd thing, and this is certainly not something you're going to get information from your 1 hour a week PT. But we look at other things like sleep. We look at digestibility, how well you're digesting your food, how well you're sleeping, things that you can do to improve that. How can you fit your diet into a busy lifestyle? That's a large part of it. You might be able to get to a spin class, a couple of times a week, but how's the rest of your week going in terms of diet? Are you able to structure things in a way which you're still providing your body with enough nutrition, enough food, and still be able to lose weight? And this is where the lifestyle coaching comes into. It's education. And a large part of being a good online coach is being able to educate your clients on how to do things effectively, how to create a routine for themselves in a busy lifestyle. And that's a large part of what I do. Getting busy people to still be able to get results based on, the time constrictions that they have. And I do a lot of that by just focusing on a very simple system, as I said so far, of lifting hard and heavy, focusing on diet, and focusing on just increased activity through steps rather than formal cardio. So that's sort of the final thing. Now, I've hopefully provided a pretty convincing case for why online coaching is generally better and more suitable for people who have made a commitment towards weight loss. And let's face it, if you're one of these people who have been kind of starving themselves, the whole sort of week, or at least feel like they're starving themselves, or not eating very very much at all, but you're not actually tracking anything, you don't actually have anyone who is making you accountable for every aspect of your training, your diet, and your sleep, and your rest throughout the week, you don't really know. There's just still a big question mark. So hopefully I've impressed upon you the idea that having someone there who's actually accountable, who's making you accountable, for all aspects is going to be infinitely more useful than just seeing a PT once a week. I think this kind of boils down to a lot of the psychology as well, the sort of quick fix mentality. Of perhaps some people these days, like, okay, great, I'm going to throw 30-40 pounds at a PT once a week just to kind of get me lean. And I'm sorry, but it just doesn't work that way. There has to be more of a commitment put in. There has to be more of a holistic look at what your entire training is, what your entire diet is. And it's got to be more than just starving yourself and doing a bunch of cardio, because that's just not sustainable. And again, it's that sort of quick fix mentality. People are like, okay, I'll throw some money at this, just get it sorted, I'll turn up once a week and we'll get it done. I just don't think, and I know for a fact that's just not enough. So what I like about online coaching is the people who typically respond very well to online coaching, they see it as a commitment. They see it as it's an actual lifestyle change. And I do cringe when I hear a lot of PTs talking about it's a lifestyle change, and then the majority of their work is just seeing someone for an hour a week, and that's not a fucking lifestyle change. The lifestyle change is what I do. It's online coaching. It's being able to view every aspect of what the person is involved in, of the person's training, diet, and rest and recuperation, and then being able to monitor those, change those for the best results. That's a lifestyle change, So, yeah. I'm gonna stop talking about sort of online coaching there for a second. I want to talk a little bit about the pros of one-to-one PT sessions, because I still do some every now and again. It's not I don't see as much value in it, but I think there's certainly more value in it now. I see more value in it now than I did when I first started this. So some of the advantages of, and some of the sort of appropriateness of PT sessions. One, I'd say for rank beginners, so absolute beginners, it's a good idea to if you're serious about your goals, to have a PT at least a bit of the time. So you don't really have time to waste. You want to make sure you're doing all the right things in the gym, and a PT there when you don't know how to lift. It's important to have someone there to show you effective ways of doing it, and they've got to be good. They've got to know what they're doing. They've got to have a background in things. They need to have some real life experience themselves. So picking an 18-year-old fresh out of college to do PTing, no offense to anyone, but it's probably not the greatest idea, because in terms of real life experience, it's very unlikely they would have had to deal with a lot of issues up until that point, which can't just be solved by just youth. So yeah, pick a good PT if you're a first timer, and make sure you get educated on how to do things correctly in the gym, so how to actually perform the exercises correctly. So I think that's a viable reason for PTs if you're a ranked beginner. Another reason would be, like, I always get my long-term clients to see me at least once or twice, probably at least once every training block, so maybe once every 6 weeks, because I want to make sure that they're training hard enough. I think this is really important. A big push that I have with my clients is to make sure they're all training just like animals, regardless of their goals, regardless of whether they want to be competitive or they just want to get in shape. I think everyone could train harder, and I think everyone should be training very, very hard. So I like to see that we're doing things right. I want to make sure that people are training as hard as possible. And that doesn't involve just swinging weights around. It means being disciplined with your form, going to an appropriate place. That if you're going to fail, you're going to fail your 1 rep in reserve or 2 reps in reserve. But make sure that they're working out hard and effectively and doing things right. And I like to check up on my online clients at least once a block, just to make sure that we're doing things properly. So I encourage them all to train with me at least once every few weeks. So I think that's another viable reason. Another reason would be people coming from other sports. So I have CrossFitters who I train, people from other sports like football as well, soccer if you're listening in America. And I think that's quite useful because a lot of their focus is going to be on their main sport, and the things that you do them, again, similar to a beginner, it could be quite educational. Or you may want to focus on imbalances, you may want to focus on specific improvements, and that kind of thing can be done a little bit easier one-to-one. So that's another viable reason for a PT session. Yeah, so in short, how can I kind of summarize this? In short, if we have a goal of losing, say, 20 to 40 pounds, and we want to make an actual lifestyle change to do that, and we don't want the weight to come on back on afterwards, it should be inherently obvious and logically sound that you would need accountability for the entire week of your training, of your diet, of your lifestyle. It should inherently make sense that that is the key to making a lifestyle change, a sustainable lifestyle change. It should be logically sound and inherently obvious that seeing someone once or twice or 3 times a week for an hour is not going to give you the body of your dreams. And just viewing it in that regard, I think it should open a lot of people's eyes. You're going to be limited by what you can do in an hour. Even if your PT has a Facebook page where she gives out general advice on weight loss, etc., etc. I mean, I do that as well on Instagram, but that's not individual accountability. That's not an individual plan. So it should be obvious that if you're looking for changes long term, holistically, you're going to need to take care of all factors and have someone who's there and makes you accountable for that, rather than 1 to 3 sessions per week where you're just getting tired. There's no real set progression from week to week, and it should be obvious that you need more than that. Now, yes, I've perhaps painted a fairly bleak picture of PT sessions and cardio spin classes, but it is a pretty bleak situation. This is from what I'm saying is true for most people that I've talked to. I very rarely see PTs who see their clients once a week and they offer them this type of accountability the entire week. So they're checking up on their training for the entire week. They're building them plans for the next 6 weeks, and then tracking their diet and building them a diet for all 7 days, and keeping them accountable. I just don't see it. So if it seems like I'm being a bit harsh on that end, I don't see it as harsh. I just see it as realistic. I think this is the experience that I've seen with people that have these PT sessions. I've seen people waste years, literally years, like 2 years in some cases, paying PTs twice a week, every single week, totaling thousands of pounds, and getting fuck all from it. Apart from, again, feeling tired at the end of every session, which is like pointless for the most part. Irrelevant certainly. So if it sounds like I'm coming across strong on that, it's because I very much believe that online coaching is far, far better for most people. And finally, it's generally more affordable. So, it doesn't make a great deal of sense not to do it if you have some serious goals, or if you just want to be leaner and maintain that level of leanness. Right, folks, I am going to call it there. It's a relatively short podcast this time, about 24, 25 minutes. But hopefully you found that useful. Right, all the best. And the next podcast is going to feature a friend of mine, and we're going to be talking about industry bullshit. Should be interesting. Looking forward to that. Right, folks, speak soon.